Dead by an Israeli soldier after a protest in Beta, a village that has endured decades of violence. Austin Bennett, Aysenur's sister.
I quickly ran down here, lying on the ground. She was.
1998'de Adalet Fakültesi Hastanesi yoruldu.
Kesmeden devam ediyor.
Turkish culture and our heritage, I think it did definitely influence how Ezgi viewed the world and maybe how she thought about.
Kızılderililerin yerleşimi yeri Kuzey Dakota olacak. Orada petrol boru hattından dolayı Kızılderili yerleşim yerlerinin içinden geçmesi gerekiyordu ve onlar mağdur olacaklardı. Onlara destek olmak için ilk
I also appreciated how she had like an open mind. Like for instance, America though, she's very connected to a Turkish identity, which I appreciated too. Or that she had heard from went and came back and they were fine.
3-5 gün kaldı. Dedim, Bismillah Antalya akrabaları eş dostları.
It was a fairly small demonstration that day.
Hamed, Gulai, and also Mahmoud. So first question to you, Gulai. Can you tell us a little bit about why it was important to make?
I grew up taking care of my sister. We're 7 years apart. And I think that need to take care of her is something I still feel, even though she's no longer here alive with us. And that's part of why I'm here. And also just the just aspect of it. I mean, she always stood up for people who were less privileged than her.
We wanted to make sure that it was the right story and it was the right context. So we wanted to make it's balanced, and we wanted to tell her story as well as others' story.
The documentary essentially shares the story of who Aysenur was and how she came to be the person that she was, and essentially what ultimately led to her death. So if someone watched the documentary for the first time who didn't know Aysenur's story, I think it would be a really fair representation of kind of her story and what happened at the end of her life. Even though they're all very supportive, it feels like there's limitations in what they can push and do that they haven't been doing in the past year that might have any sort of forward motion. They've written letters to the State Department and the Department of Justice multiple times throughout the past year since Aysenur was killed, and they're essentially met with silence. There have been no replies to their inquiries or requests for an open investigation. It's been a mixed bag of things. There's been trying to grieve while trying to advocate and feeling, a spectrum of emotions in being met with a lot of silence or not being able to open an investigation when we feel strongly that there's a really clear case in my sister's killing, and that it's the bare minimum our government should do to protect a U.S. citizen, any U.S. citizen. And unfortunately, there have been so many other American citizens who have been killed by the Israeli military since my sister's death in the West Bank. And it doesn't have to be that way.
I was telling you that a really good description of how she was when I knew her, where she's like laughing and there's a lot of wind blowing and she's like on this ledge. It's actually, she was visiting my family in North Carolina, and we were up in the mountains, and she was on the ledge of like a lookout, and there's like a steep drop right after it. And she's up there, and my mom, you can hear her out of breath, telling her to come down and kind of rewatch it and listen closer. She's saying, "I feel my heart, feel my heart." And she's like, "One leg," and she's laughing and teasing, and that's how I knew her best, is that she was just this silly, joyful, and non-serious individual that also held this immense like this true dedication to being just in all forms of what that meant, especially to herself. She had to stand for justice for others.
Ayşenur'un hayatını anlatmak istedik ve aslında Ayşenur'un hayatını anlatarak Ayşenur'un ilk olmadığını ve ne yazık ki de son olmayacağını anlatmak istedik. Onun için adalet arayışını ve aslında sadece onun için değil, onun ismiyle diğer bütün katledilen Filistinliler ve Filistinler için canını feda eden bütün diğerleri için aslında adalet arayışına şahitlik etmek istedik.
This government and all previous governments were complicit, not only in perpetrating these crimes, but also in the cover-up of these crimes. And this is what the student movement is trying to change. So I just hope that their sacrifices will not be in vain.